What's the worst defense you've seen someone make in a court? We had a guy in court when I worked in CPS who beat his kid with a belt. In court, he asked the judge if he could take off his belt and demonstrate how hard he hit his kid by using his jacket on the back of a chair. The judge was like, whatevs, go for it. I was expecting him to half-ass it, but the guy wailed on the chair until the bailiff told him that's enough. The entire courtroom was like, holy a dude. And that's how I got quite possibly the easiest child removal to date. Not that I had any thought I'd lose the case. The pictures were horrific, and that kid will have scars from that beating for life. I took a guy to small claims court. His defense was I didn't have the product, so I couldn't ship it to him, obviously. The judge was like, but you took his money? The guy, yay, so I could buy the product and ship it to him. Judge, did you do that? Guy, not yet. Judge, do you have his money? Guy, no, I had an emergency and had to spend it. That was that. I won. Edit, someone gave me gold? Thanks, this was a very stressful period of my life. I saw this go down while waiting for my traffic ticket. Judge, so, you were seen pulling a stop sign out of the ground and throwing it in the river. Accused, yes, sir. J, were you drunk? A, no, sir. J, the ticket says you were intoxicated. A, no, sir. J, okay, let's say I believe you. I will throw out this drunk and disorderly charge. A, thank you, sir. J, but I will have to charge you with the destruction of government property and endangering the public. That comes with at least a year in jail. So I'll ask one more time. Were you drunk? A, yes, sir. Very drunk, sir. I never touched my daughters. I never hurt my daughters. Never would I sexually abuse my daughters. Except that one time at the cabin. The guy became an instant meme in our country/language. A domestic abuse case. The husband was the accused. The couple was in their late 70s or early 80s. When asked if he did indeed abuse his wife, the husband started complaining that some 40 years ago the wife pretended to be ill and he had to do the laundry all by himself, as if he expected the judge to just go, oh okay, I guess that's cool then. I was in traffic court and the first guy to go before the judge got pulled over doing some crazy speed, like 140 miles per hour. The judge essentially told the guy to say he wouldn't ever do it again and that it was a mistake, and in return, the judge would drop the ticket fee and the points on his record. The guy countered with, well, I drive that fast all the time, so I'm really good at it, and I don't think it was dangerous at all because of how good of a driver I am. Guy could have walked out totally free, but instead got a $2,500 fine and 2 points on his record. I watched a friend try a DWI case. Her client testified that she wasn't drunk while driving and therefore not guilty because she was actually high on meth at the time. My friend put her head down and started hitting her head against the desk. Guilty. I was a juror for a case against a woman that was charged with selling a stolen gun to a pawnbroker and possession of a gun by a convicted felon. She took the stand and admitted to finding the gun at a friend's house and taking it to the pawnbroker. Her attorney's entire closing argument was that the state failed to prove that it was a gun and the charges should be dropped. Never mind the fact that she admitted to it being a gun. The guy that owned the gun said it was his gun, and we had it right there in front of us. The defense said it was not a gun because the state had not fired it to prove it was a gun. And of course, as soon as we get back to the room to deliberate, one of the other jurors said he was not convinced it was a real gun. That was a really long day. Edit. Wow, this is by far the most karma I've ever gotten on a comment. To those wondering, we had the gun in the jury room, but it was in a clear plastic box. We did have a bailiff come in at one point to take it out and pull the slide back. We were not allowed to handle it ourselves. Friend of mine once got a ticket for leaving her car standing in the marked off no parking zone in front of a grocery store, which she thought was outrageous because she was just running in to get a pack of smokes. Then she saw how much the ticket was for, something like $120, which she thought was just ridiculous because damn it, she was just running in for a pack of smokes. I mean, come on, how is that worth $120? So her plan was to go to court and contest the ticket and point out to the judge how ridiculous that was, and offer to compromise at like maybe $40, because for Pete's sake, she was just running in for a pack of smokes, and let's be reasonable here. Yes, her plan was to haggle with the judge over how much the ticket should be worth. So she goes to court, and sits there most of the day waiting for her case to be called. And eventually she gets bored, and goes outside to grab a smoke and hang out. And while she's out there, her case is called. She missed the whole thing, didn't even get to try the whole come on, $120? For that? Come on. I'll give you $40 and even that's highway robbery defense on the judge, and got hit for the full value of the ticket plus court costs. A guy was in court for a DUI, and he insisted on taking the stand when his lawyer advised him not to. Turned out he wanted the judge to know the cop who arrested him was just some rude kid trying to be a big shot and he wasn't even drunk. He'd only had 2 bottles of wine with dinner. His lawyer interrupted him to try to get him to stop talking, and he told his lawyer to shut up. Then the judge advised him to listen to his lawyer, and he told the judge, "I'm not a damn child, don't interrupt me," and the judge just smiled and sat back and said, "Please, proceed." We all knew it was over for this guy. He got maxed on the charge, and advised in the future, if he was going to pay for a lawyer, he should listen to him. Sexual assault trial we had this past summer. Guy brutally raped a woman in a park, then took her bike and ATM card. A few minutes later he is recorded withdrawing $80 from her account. He is arrested within hours of the assault. At trial, he testified that the sex was consensual and the victim enjoyed performing oral on him so much that she gave him the bike and ATM card to show her appreciation and that someone else came along and beat her after he left. He also practiced his planned testimony with an inmate who had just been sentenced on a gun charge and bragged about the sexual assault in detail. That inmate threw him under the bus and testified against him. Gun charge inmate freely admitted he hoped rapist would wind up in the same prison he did, so he could hand out some rec-yard justice. Running dope and guns was one thing, but he couldn't tolerate someone touching a woman. It didn't take long for a guilty verdict and life sentence. When my cousin was on a jury for a domestic case, the woman was put in the hospital by her boyfriend. She was in a coma for 18 months and couldn't even appear in court. Apparently the guy pushed her through a door and down the stairs. The guy's defense lawyer was actually trying to get him off with a lighter sentence, but then the guy opened his mouth and tried using the defense of, "If she would have just listened to me about not touching my gun, I wouldn't have gotten so mad. I didn't think the push was strong enough to put her through the door. I didn't mean to put her in a coma. It just happens." When my cousin told me this, I couldn't believe it. He ended up spending 3 years in jail and is no longer allowed to possess weapons. He was deemed mentally incapable of handling such things. I gave testimony as a health professional in a child custody case. The mother wanted to revoke the father's joint physical custody of the 8-year-old girl. The issue was, that girl was asked to wipe her father's butt, apply lotion, and wash his genitals. The father's case was that, because he was obese, fatigued, suffering from frequent diarrhea, and taxed to take care of his own hygiene without assistance, it was acceptable for her to do this, as long as she wore gloves, to avoid contracting hepatitis C from him. He also argued that it taught her a lesson about compassion and caring for those unable to do so themselves, and helped them to bond. Truly incredible. Mine is sort of a worst/best defense sort of scenario. A few years ago I was doing jury duty at Crown Court in the Old Bailey. It was to judge this gang violence case against a Sri Lankan gang in London. Essentially someone had gotten attacked with a machete in a car park and left for dead. There were 6 suspects in this trial, 2 of which had left the country. What was very clear was that all 6 of these people were in complete cahoots. Every one of these 4 came to trial and blamed one another, so no one got blamed twice, but every one of them got the blame placed on them. Most of the evidence pointed to one of the guys in the trial, or one of the guys that had left the country. We had to vote not guilty because there was so much reasonable doubt against all of them that none of them could be prosecuted. I overheard this guy tell the officer that yes, his car license is suspended, but I don't remember the correct terminology, the driving truck one isn't, and neither is his moped license. 3 people and the judge tried to explain that a suspended license means he's lost his privilege to drive in general and altogether. He kept fighting it and saying he wasn't fixing anything cause he's now driving a moped and that license is still okay. He came out with saying it's suspended for several old DUIs. Wow, you've reached the end of the video. If you want to see more, be sure to subscribe to our channel for more videos.